Daberechi was on her way home from the market, taking the shorter route as advised by the queen, when she noticed the strange shadows trailing her steps. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then she stopped and turned to see two palace guards walking briskly towards her. "Daberechi," one of them called out, "come with us immediately." Daberechi's stomach twisted in fear as she wondered why they wanted her to follow them. She dropped the basket she was carrying and began to run as fast as she could. The guards gave her a chase. "Stop there," one shouted, but Daberechi had no intention of stopping. She ran through the trees, praying silently. She didn't understand why they were after her, but deep down she suspected it had everything to do with Ejiofor. She ran until her legs felt like they would give out, but the guards were relentless. When one of them finally caught her by the arm, she screamed, but he quickly covered her mouth with his hands. It all began with a simple admiration from Prince Ejiofor, the only son of King Akolisa of Anioma Kingdom. What a beautiful maiden! How come I have never seen this maiden before in this palace? Prince Ejiofor marveled at Daberechi's beauty as she walked past on her way to the stream, carrying a small water pot. "My prince, that is not the kind of maiden you should be seen with," Ikenna, the prince's bosom friend, replied him. "She is a slave and an orphan. Her parents were slaves in this palace for years. They were part of the people captured at war many years ago. She grew into slavery and is still considered a slave, even though the king has abolished slavery in Anioma. You are just seeing her because you have been away for a long time." "Really, Ikenna? I think I like that maiden." "Guard, call that maiden for me immediately," the prince ordered. The guard quickly did as he was ordered, and in seconds, Daberechi was standing before the prince. "Greetings, my prince," she greeted, giving a slight bow. "Beautiful maiden of Anioma, what is your name?" the prince asked her. "My name is Daberechi, my prince," she responded. "I like you, Daberechi. I would like to make you my woman. What do you think?" asked the prince. "I am sorry, my prince, but that doesn't sound like a good idea. I am just a slave and should not be seen around a nobleman like you," Daberechi replied respectfully and dashed away before the prince could say anything else. She was really scared and she knew that she would be in trouble if the queen saw her standing and talking to the prince. As she left, the prince began to laugh. "I have found my bride," he said to himself silently. He signaled to Ikenna and the guard, and they continued on their journey. The prince began to trail Daberechi from that day. He noticed that she went to the stream every day at noon. He began to leave the palace alone without his guards, so he could meet with her. Prince Ejiofor and Daberechi became friends, and their friendship grew into a romantic relationship. Every day, he met her under a tree at a secluded part of the stream where they played and shared jokes. They were never seen together because the Anioma people hardly went to the stream at noon, and their meetings were usually brief. At the palace, they went about their daily activities and never spoke to each other. Daberechi knew their love was dangerous. She was a commoner and he was royalty. But the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, the way his laughter chased away her fears, it was a love she couldn't walk away from. They continued to meet under the tree until one day, the prince called her into his hut at night when no one was watching. One thing led to the other. They got carried away and made love. The prince deflowered her. Daberechi was just 16. They continued with their secret relationship until one day, a hunter who was returning from the forest after being away for days passed by the stream at noon and saw Prince Ejiofor and Daberechi. "This is an abomination," he blurted out. He hid himself and ran immediately to the palace. He reported to Queen Nneka, Prince Ejiofor's mother, that the prince was in a relationship with the daughter of a slave. The queen was very furious. When Prince Ejiofor returned home, she confronted him. "Tell me it is not true that you, my only son, would lower yourself to a common girl." Prince Ejiofor refused to be intimidated. "It is true, mother. I love her and I want to marry her. I am old enough to choose who I want to be with. Daberechi is the maiden I love and would like to marry," he repeated again. The queen was disgusted at the prince's choice. She tried to convince him to pick a maiden from one of the noble families in the village. "How can you claim to be in love with a maiden whose parents served as my slave? That makes her a slave too, because she was born into slavery. Do you think love is enough to uphold the throne? You will marry the woman I choose, someone of royal blood, or at least from a noble family that can complement you as the queen, not a slave girl without a root." Prince Ejiofor quietly walked away, not wanting to exchange words with his mother. Knowing that his relationship was now known, Prince Ejiofor decided not to hide it anymore. He spoke to Daberechi in public, holding hands with her, to the dismay of the beautiful maidens of the kingdom. The news of Prince Ejiofor's relationship with the slave girl spread through Anioma kingdom like wildfire, and the whole village was disappointed at his choice. How could the prince stoop so low to fall in love with a slave girl when there are several beautiful and noble maidens in the village? They wondered. The king felt very embarrassed and disappointed. He summoned the prince into his chambers and expressed his disappointment, warning him to stay away from Daberechi. Queen Nneka also summoned Daberechi and scolded her, reminding her of her position and threatening to deal with her if she continued with the relationship. Daberechi became scared. She began to avoid the prince. She stopped meeting him at their usual spot, and that really broke his heart. She also avoided him at the palace. When he couldn't see Daberechi for about a week, he locked himself up in his room, refusing to eat or drink. Queen Nneka knew that his refusal to eat had to do with the slave girl. She decided to put an end to their relationship permanently. She summoned two of her most trusted guards and whispered a plan into their ears. She asked them to abduct Daberechi, take her into the forest, and get rid of her. After all, she was a nobody and no one would look for her, she thought. Take her far away into the forest and get rid of her. Make sure you stand by her and ensure she stops breathing before you leave, she insisted. 3 days later, the queen sent Daberechi to the market very late in the evening. Get me some cocoa beans from Amadi's store at the market, she said as she handed her some cowries. Be fast about it. You can see it's getting late. Take the bushy path on your way home. It is shorter, she added. Daberechi innocently collected the cowries and dashed happily to the market. Immediately she left, the queen alerted the guards she had earlier planned with. Daberechi got to the market when Amadi was about to lock up his store. He had to quickly open up and attend to her. Daberechi was on her way home from the market, taking the shorter route as advised by the queen, when she noticed the strange shadows trailing her steps. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then she stopped and turned to see 2 palace guards walking briskly towards her. Daberechi, one of them called out, "Come with us immediately." Daberechi's stomach twisted in fear as she wondered why they wanted her to follow them. She dropped the basket she was carrying and began to run as fast as she could. The guards gave her a chase. "Stop there," one shouted, but Daberechi had no intention of stopping. She ran through the trees, praying silently. She didn't understand why they were after her, but deep down she suspected it had everything to do with Ejiofor. She ran until her legs felt like they would give out, but the guards were relentless. When one of them finally caught her by the arm, she screamed, but he quickly covered her mouth with his hands. "Let me go," she cried. "What have I done to you?" "You have done nothing to us, but you have crossed the line," the guard replied. Before she could fight back, the second guard appeared, tying her hands with a rope. "We have our orders," he muttered, avoiding her tearful gaze. They dragged her deeper into the forest. As the familiar sights of the village faded away, "Please let me go," Daberechi continued to beg the guards helplessly in tears. The guards exchanged uneasy glances, but decided to ignore her. "This is your fault. You should have known your place," one of them said. They continued to move deeper into the forest until they got to a small field. They untied her hands and pushed her forward. "Run," one of them ordered. Confused and terrified, Daberechi turned to face them. "What do you mean?" "Run," the guard repeated. "We were asked to take your life. Should we go ahead or you prefer to run into the forest?" he asked, pulling out his sword. He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. With tears streaming down her face, Daberechi turned and ran as fast as her legs could carry her. The forest seemed endless as she ran through the trees in the darkness. She called out for help, but only the mocking echoes of her voice answered. She ran for over 1 hour until she was tired and exhausted. She collapsed under a big tree, her body trembling with fear. Back in Anioma, the news of Daberechi's sudden disappearance spread through the village and got everyone confused. Queen Nneka also pretended to be confused and worried. The guards had returned home the previous night and reported that they had gotten rid of Daberechi as ordered, and she was happy. The king summoned her and asked her about Daberechi's whereabouts, but she said she had no idea. When Prince Ejiofor heard of her sudden disappearance, he was very sad. "I didn't even have the opportunity to talk to her before she suddenly disappeared," he said. He locked himself up in his hut, refusing to talk to anyone. Queen Nneka ignored him, knowing he would come around after some time. Just as she thought, Prince Ejiofor gradually began to get over Daberechi after 2 months of her disappearance. The queen began to introduce different maidens to him for marriage, but he rejected all of them. After so much persuasion from the king and the queen, he reluctantly decided to marry Oma, the daughter of Ichie Ogbonnaya, one of the village chiefs. A date was picked for their traditional marriage ceremony. On the eve of his traditional marriage, Prince Ejiofor broke down in tears and wept bitterly in his hut. He was getting married to Oma just to please his parents, but he didn't love her. His heart beat only for one person, Daberechi. The traditional marriage was held. Oma was very happy to be getting married to the prince. She smiled at everyone, but Prince Ejiofor was not happy. He couldn't wait for the ceremony to be over. The forest was not friendly to Daberechi. To make matters worse, she discovered she was pregnant. Pregnant for Prince Ejiofor. Each passing day became a new battle for survival, and as her pregnancy progressed, the weight of her growing child slowed her down. The once vibrant girl who danced through life was now reduced to a shadow of herself. The first night after being chased into the forest by the guards, she discovered how cold the forest could be, with no shelter. She crawled beneath a fallen tree, hugging her knees to her chest. The cries of animals echoed around her, each sound sending a chill down her spine. She couldn't sleep. Instead, she stayed awake, trembling, waiting for dawn to rescue her. and praying she didn't get attacked by wild animals. In the middle of the night, it began to rain heavily. Daberechi was drenched. She got up and ran to take shelter under a big tree. She burst into tears and became very cold. When the morning light came and the rain had stopped, Daberechi got up and began to wander around. Her body ached from sleeping on the unyielding ground. Her tummy began to rumble as a result of hunger. She combed the bush around her, hoping to find something, anything at all, to eat. After walking for about 30 minutes, she came across a mango tree, but the fruits were unripe. She moved further and found a pawpaw tree filled with ripe fruits. She found a long bamboo stick around with which she plucked some fruit from the tree. She sat down immediately and began to devour it without hesitation. Close to the pawpaw tree was a river that ran very clear. She scooped some water from the river and drank to her satisfaction. The river became her refuge. She built a small shelter from branches and leaves just by the river bank. Every day, she had her bath in the river and drank water from it as well. As her pregnancy progressed, her body grew weaker and the loneliness became unbearable. However, she had no choice. She kept struggling to survive in the forest, feeding on whatever fruit she came across. One night, Daberechi stood in front of her shelter. Suddenly, a pack of wild dogs emerged from the shadows. Their glowing eyes reflected in the moonlight. Daberechi froze with fear. She knew she couldn't outrun them. Not in her condition. She grabbed a thick branch. Her heart was racing as the dogs circled closer. "Stay back," she screamed, waving the branch wildly. The dogs attacked, and Daberechi swung with all her might, striking them one after the other. After several minutes of yelling and swinging, the dogs finally dispersed, their growls fading into the distance. When they were gone, Daberechi collapsed, her body shaking as she burst into tears and cried bitterly. "How much more can I endure?" she whispered to herself. Every night, she had series of nightmares of being hunted by the palace guards, by wild animals, by the forest itself. She was drenched by the rain on several occasions, fell down countless times when it rained and the ground became slippery. 6 months of being in the forest, Daberechi's body began to fail. She had swollen feet and high fever. She sat by the river, staring into its depths. For the first time, she considered giving up. She was tempted to jump into the river and let it take her, to end her suffering and spare her child from the cruel world. But as she gazed at her reflection in the water, she noticed something unusual. A trace of movement beneath the surface. It was gentle, almost unnoticeable. She cried out with all her strength, "Is anyone there? Please help me. I can't do this alone." Unknown to Daberechi, her cries had awakened something ancient and powerful. The river had heard her, and soon her life would change in ways she could never have imagined.